Okay, what is up, Sky Fam, Av Geeks, everybody? That was supposed to be a super cool, super dope intro, and it didn't play the music. I'm going to try again, because I worked really hard on that. Let's try it again. There it goes. What's up, Squadron? Aviation has given me a ton of amazing experiences. And more importantly, it's introduced me to a whole new family of friends. Join us tonight, because we're cleared direct for some hangar flying. I'm Ryan Dembroski, and this is SuperAero Live. That's what it's supposed to look like. Trying to be a professional here in the SuperAero Squadron basement. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me again. Week 2 of SuperAero Live, while we all hunker down, safer at home, safer in the basement. I'm going to get right to it. Tonight we have an awesome guest. I'm super excited to welcome her. Everyone, welcome Sara Nisler. Did I pronounce that right?
Good enough.
Good.
Hello.
No, because you said to me once, you said, I'm not nice, so I've been saying Nisler, but is it Nisler?
No, it's Nisler. Just
not
so much on the S.
Not so much zzz.
Yeah.
Too much Z.
Right.
Okay, so I got to ask you up front, are you are here unofficially or officially? You're just here?
I'm just here, unofficially.
I'll take it. So Sara, you and I was looking through, like, this is going to sound a little creepy. I was looking through old emails and stuff. I was like, how did we start? Because we were like social media friends, right? We didn't like meet first. We met way later.
Yeah, I think we met through my coworker, Hal. He told me about you, that I needed to follow you. So I started.
Oh, right. And then I think we were like DMing on Instagram or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
And eventually I came up and I had an awesome day, and I made a whole video about visiting you guys at EA. And I think I upset Hal because I was making this joke about like the front falling off of airplanes. They were just in maintenance. It was what they were supposed to be.
Right.
I'm going to say hi to a couple people before we dig into a couple things. We've got we got to talk about some things. Couple of people to say hi tonight. Sarah M's here in the chat. Hey, Sarah. John Adams, I'm assuming a modern day John Adams. Michael Dornbos from last week is here in the chat. Hey, thanks for coming, buddy. Thanks for coming back, and thank you for being our first guest ever. I was pretty freaked out. I drank a lot of whiskey that night, but I think the feed turned out okay. Who else is here? Noah Goldstein, my brother. Good to see you. Ryan Krueger, Patreon supporter. Ryan, thanks so much for showing up tonight. Ryan also, people don't know, and Sarah, you don't know any of these people. Well, you know some of these people.
Well, some, yes.
Ryan is a partner in my airplane that we share, the 14 of us, and our airplane just went down for its overhaul. The engine just was torn off, I think, yesterday, and Ryan's our maintenance officer. He's been handling all of that. So, Ryan, thank you. I'm going to give you a public shout out. Thank you for doing that. Oh, hey, our friends... I think it's supposed to be an end. Oh, RV November 782 Papa. Yeah, RV builder from last week. Good to see you back, my friend, who's helping us out a lot with stuff about building. Well water, Mike. Sorry. Now it's different tonight. It's beer because I wanted to like slow it down, stay in control. I was a little fat fingered at the end of the feed last week. Okay. So, Connie's here too. Hey, Connie. Okay, everyone. So, thanks for coming. Sara, thank you so much for being here tonight. Before we dig we're here to talk about your learning to fly journey and some of the epic experiences you've had. But you do work at EAA, and there is kind of a giant elephant in the room about Osh 20. And I don't know if you want to say anything, or we should just leave it alone. Leave it alone.
I'm just sad like everybody else is, but I think it was the right call to make, and I'm super bummed I'm not going to see everyone this year, but I have some plans in the work for us virtually that week, so we'll get to still do some cool aviation stuff.
Is it anything you can tease out now other than plans, or?
No, we're still working on it.
Okay, fair enough.
It's gonna cover a lot of stuff around aviation, EAA, Air Venture is a part of it, but it's much beyond that. So there'll be cool people involved and cool stuff we'll be doing.
Very cool. And I saw just before I tried to put my kids to bed tonight, I saw that there's the Oshkosh 20 like classic merch is available.
Yes,
which I thought was super cool.
Yeah, we got a lot in already before we knew the event was going away this year, and we'll have some more. And then we'll probably have some stuff around the week to show special tribute to something different this year.
That is awesome. Yeah, and I think, my plan is to pick up some Osh 20 merch just because I want you guys to be supported. You didn't pay me. You're not sponsoring this, but that's my plan. Actually, I'm trying to, I don't know if you can see it. I'm trying to rep like my favorite sweatshirt.
Ah, nice.
I don't know if, that's really hard to do when it's mirrored and you're looking. It's really difficult. But I work at an ad agency and everyone's wearing like this like super, they're all wearing like designer clothes, and I get a lot of compliments on how the heck do I show you this? Like,
what you're doing.
I'm giving up. It's an EAA sweatshirt, folks. It's an EAA sweatshirt, and I like it. The zipper's broken, and I still wear it all the time because it's that went off the rails quickly. A couple other people to say hi as people filter in. Chris Palmer from Angle Attack just showed up. Chris, so good to see you. Chris, I think next week is going to be on the show, barring any complications,
nice.
Which is going to be really cool. We'll talk about Alaska, mountain flying and flight training in Alaska, which will be really fun. Marty's here. Marty's been he's actually in the intro clip, which I'm sure he's furious about. And also Jason Katz in the chat right now. Jason, thanks so much for showing up. Jason, everyone, he's going to be frustrated to tell people this. He's one of the first responders helping us all right now. So just Jason, thanks for doing that. Fighting the good fight, man. We really appreciate it. So, Sarah, okay, I've been talking a lot and really fast. I feel like out of breath. I just want to talk a little bit about we got the Osh 20 stuff out of the way. I agree with you, by the way. I think it was the right decision. So many moving parts I think people aren't considering when they think about the big, like, it's just a gigantic logistical undertaking, and like safety, whatever, politics notwithstanding, like it just like to get the show mounted with the challenges that are in place, it just seemed like there's no other way. So I will be on record as commending you guys for making the tough call, and I don't know, blah, blah, something awesome 2021.
2021 is going to be amazing. I just know it.
Yeah, we got it. It's got to be. Awesome. Yeah. And Michael Dornbos just says lots of sanitizer. Lots of sanitizer. Yeah. Well, hopefully by 2021 that we won't need that as much. So Sarah, you tell me a little bit about your journey. You weren't always, were you always an aviation person?
No, not at all. Not till I went to EAA.
So
I started there about 8 years ago, just by chance. No reason to get into it other than I knew somebody that worked there and they had a job open that fit my skills, so I took it.
Cool. So then you're working at EA and you're learning all about aviation and flying and stuff, and then the bug hits you, or how did that happen?
Yes, the bug hit me immediately. I loved it ever since I started, but it took me 7 years almost into working there for me to get up the cojones to start learning to fly, because it never seemed like something I could ever possibly tackle. I was super afraid of the controls. So it took a flight in Utah actually to show me that this was something I could do.
Wait, I might have a picture of that. Let me see here. Yeah. You sent me some photos.
Yeah.
Not that I jumped ahead here. I'm guessing it's this one?
Well, that was part of my trip. And then there's one with me and Mark Patey, who took me up in his Cirrus. And he was just like the perfect instructor for me because I was super nervous. And the way he handled that one, the way he handled, that's me being super nervous. So, but he was just so awesome in how he talked to me and, showed me how everything worked, that I'm like, if I find somebody like that, I can do this.
So I think we have to have him on the show in 2 weeks. I think I have an opening. We'll have him on the show, and he can tell us about how he. You don't look that nervous, Sarah. There, you're putting on a good smile.
Well, yeah.
So wait, I jumped the gun a little bit. So folks listening on the podcast version of this, if you're doing anything like that, I will do my best to describe these photos. So this first picture, this was the thumbnail for the live stream. Sarah's in the back of a P-51, and there's some mean-looking warbirds off on the wing. I don't. Can you tell me a little bit about that? What are those planes out there?
They're F-16s, so not so much warbirds, but.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess you guys consider warbirds to be like the vintage warbirds.
Yeah.
Sorry,
right,
war fighters. I don't know.
Yeah.
Freedom.
So right, correct. This was the heritage flight 2 years ago, Monday night, that flew over the concert, and I just was in the right place at the right time. I was working very hard during AirVenture, and this was a little bit way for me to get a little bit of reward, I guess, for it. But I also was creating content for something, so mostly the reason I went up in it. But yeah, it was the most incredible thing. I was with Andrew McKenna on the heritage flight, and he made me quite sick because he did a lot of aerobatics while we were waiting out over the lake for the F-16s. But then right next to me is rain. And then, so it was the coolest thing I've ever experienced, being right next to a fighter jet in a Mustang.
I think a lot of people would literally kill someone.
Yeah.
Like,
I hate talking about it.
So, I mean, I don't begrudge you for it. I think here's another shot for folks at home listening. It's another shot, just a different shot of the F-16s off the wing, and that's just that's super epic. I mean, I think that's one of the I would hope that has a little bit to help motivate you in your pilot journey. Look out and see all that horsepower.
Yeah, it just reinforces, honestly, my love for EAA aviation, the whole community, and it reminds me how cool our lives are.
Yeah, and I think they're really cool, even if you aren't getting to do that. Like, that's pretty rare. That's pretty. I mean, you said it. It's a pretty special experience. But there's so much like. I'm trying to think of how to explain it. I've never done that. But I've had, like, even just having another plane on the wing, another friend on the wing, just feels, I don't even know how to describe it. So I think even though that might be the knob turned up to 11,
I know.
there's a lot like that. Folks are chatting. Sarah Clucky says, so amazing. I agree, Sarah. Ryan says, experience of a lifetime. Yeah, probably.
Absolutely. Yep.
So take me back. Now the chat's razzing Ryan Krueger because he has a lot of time in P-51s. So, so let's go back let's talk about this journey a little bit. So you go with Mark. Here's Mark and you nervously in the Cirrus. I've never flown in a Cirrus. Do you have anything for me to know about it?
It's not the airplane. If I bought an airplane, that's not the one I'm going to buy, just because I like different kind of flying. But if you want to get somewhere, it's pretty sweet.
And the side stick, that was your first. That was kind of one of your first experiences. But looking back on it, the side stick, was that weird or?
Everything was weird. I mean, I'm flying next to a mountain and with a Patey, and the whole thing was surreal.
I guess that's fair. Speaking of Pateys, at some point in your trip out there, you were flying in formation with Draco. So you just have a bit of a... You've got a formation thing with historic and epic aircraft.
Yeah, I mean, had no idea how unique this was going to be since Draco is no longer at this moment. But
I'm going to just... In memory.
Yes, but they're such great guys. It's just so much fun to do backcountry flying. It was so inspiring, and the whole experience was like, I get to do this. I have to take advantage of it. Like, I'm in such a position to do something that a lot of other people can't. I have to do it.
So we're going to jump ahead to this in a second, but one of the questions that just came up in the chat, which I think would be good for you to answer in the context of your learning to fly journey, Marty's asking, so what airplane are you going to buy, Sarah?
Well, I mean, if I could pick one, it would probably be a Carbon Cub, but I'm not going to pay that kind of money for an airplane. So maybe like a Super Cub or something like that. Something that I can do low and slow, but not too slow. But it's fun.
So I think as we talk a little bit about your path to getting to, seems so excited about this. My glasses are steaming up. I even changed to different glasses tonight because my one's last. Okay, sorry. Let's keep moving. Okay, so I think I get why you want to do that. So okay, let's go through. I want to talk about learning to fly. Was this is a shot that maybe is what influenced you a little bit in that decision. Yeah. So for the folks at home, your front seat looks like a J3 Cub.
Oh gosh, I think it was yeah, probably, yep.
It was so amazing. You don't remember. You look,
I know,
totally awesome. You're like, it looks like you're like ready to go like run a canyon. I mean, something Cub. It's something.
I feel like it's not a J3, but
like a Cub Special or something.
Maybe. This was at High Sierra fly-in, and I had like 5 minutes free because I was there for work, and somebody took me up, and I just flew around the desert area.
Oh yeah,
that's the cool thing about aviation. Everybody wants to help people fly and to go flying, and you can find anyone that's gonna get you up in the air.
Yeah, definitely. I would say my experience mirrors that as well. Okay, so I just found out 782 Papa is Jeff O'Rear. Jeff says, Sarah, that you should build a hats. There's more wings on that though, so it's even more effort.
Yeah, I've flown in one, but we can discuss my lack of ability to commit to long-term things, which was a concern learning to fly. So building an airplane, I don't know.
It's something I dream about, but I think it's a miracle that this is a show right now. Okay, so also just another photo you sent me. It looks like you're barefoot on the green dot. That's not a thing that.
Yeah. Another fun thing. So before AirVenture, they always paint the dots. So we went out there for a special EAA project right before they painted the green dot, and so I took time to stand on it.
Yeah, you got it.
It was closed. The runway was closed.
Now, is this on 27?
Yeah. Yes.
Because in the intro, if you guys were paying attention, we landed on near the green dot. Sorry, Marty. It was pretty close. Speaking of awesome airplanes, here's you rocking it out for the folks at home. I'm going to guess, because I've seen the file titles, that this is in a Orion, right?
Oh, yeah, a PT-23 that used to be Paul Poberezny's, actually. So I had a friend who had it for a lot of the summer, so I went up in that right after AirVenture last year.
That's awesome. Here's a shot off the wing of that. Oh, let me have you a little there. Look at that sunset.
Yeah.
So this is off the left wing. We've got the sun just shining down, kind of epically. That I think by the way. Like when people talk about like moments, like why do you fly? Those moments are the ones that really crystallize it for me. One of our other friends, Eric Farewell, Aviator PPG, talks a lot about look at my stupid glasses. Talks a lot about he has this memory of flying in the sunset. Like they were in the sunset. You didn't see the sunset from the paramotor. They were in the sunset. And I think that's like that really hit me when he talked about that. And I think this photo you have here of this wingtip shot is just like so indicative of that. Okay, so I think we're ready to talk about flying, learning to fly.
Okay.
So talk me through it. You work up to it. You're getting ready. You've worked at EA for a number of years, and you make the commitment to do it. Where do you start?
Good question. So I started kind of disorganized because I just decided I'm doing this. Okay, I just need to start because if I think about it, I'm gonna quit already. So I actually went through a couple instructors before I got to my final plan. So I would say that was the biggest thing, finding the right instructor for me, from the time commitment, the accessibility, the type of airplane I wanted to fly, and how I guess connected with him. So luckily I was able to get somebody on Oshkosh Airport that had a Cub because I wanted to start in tailwheel. So I jumped into that. I went through about 3 airplanes going through my learning to fly journey. So I got to experience a couple different ways of flying.
Which is not a bad thing at all.
It wasn't. It was a little inefficient, but it was great to learn a bunch of different skills before I got my certificate.
Absolutely. So you make the decision, you have to go, and I think this is totally mirrors my experience. I went to a couple different schools before I found the one that fit me the best. You go to a couple different schools, you find one. I think the other challenge in Wisconsin where we're at is that there aren't schools necessarily in every single town. And, for me, I was in Milwaukee, Timmerman Airport, where my aircraft is, that I'm in, the partnership I'm in now is stored, hangared there. I did not learn to fly at Timmerman. I learned to fly in Hartford, Wisconsin, which is like a 45-minute drive away. That added a whole nother layer of commitment to it. So like being able to get your lessons, find the place closest to you and also still get the aircraft you wanted, super, super critical to success, I think.
Yeah, I actually started in Hartford too, but 50-minute drive when I'm coming into winter was going to just make it super difficult.
Yeah. There's so many winters that I had to cancel lessons because I was afraid of. It's like, if you could fly to Timmerman and do my lesson, I could be there. Ryan Krueger wants to know, so what plane did you end up training in then?
So I soloed through the J3 Cub. That airplane went down with engine failure right after that. So I was forced to move. I needed to move eventually because I couldn't do all of my Checkride in that Cub. So I went briefly to Piper Cherokee Warrior. And so I went from fun Cub to a low wing, heavier airplane, and I hated it.
Dude, I don't want to, I'm going to lose viewers, but so I did the same thing. I went J3 Cub to Piper Cherokee, and I mean, I have nostalgia for it because I learned to fly in it, but like that, I did not like that plane.
No,
sorry, Piper.
I've gone back though and flown a Archer, and I do like that. I do like it a lot more than I used to. But so I went from that. I'm lucky at EAA that we have a flying club with a number of different airplanes. So I went to the Cessna 172. I got to the point where I'm like, I need to focus on getting my certificate, getting the skills, and having something that really helps me get there. So I went to the 172 and finished there.
By the way, Piper aircraft, I I still would love you to be a sponsor of this.
That didn't. You didn't do a very good job.
The Cherokee, I mean, it was old. It was old. It smelled like a stack of old newspapers. It's from like the 70s. It's not your fault. I mean, it was. I take back everything I said. It's just, I think. Well, let's say though, like compared to a J3, like
that's.
You're talking about like a sublime like motorcycle in the sky experience compared to like an attempt at replacing a car.
Right.
It's just like a different kind of thing.
Yeah, it was only because I like moved from the Cub to that, and I just wasn't ready for the change.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, the other thing is then coming from, for me, going, I want to ask you about this, J3 to Cessna. So J3 to Cherokee to Cessna. When I became a partner in my first Cessna that I was a partner in, the transition training was hard because between that old kind of, I guess almost vintage, it might qualify as a vintage Cherokee, to a more modern like 90s era Cessna, like so much more power, so much less drag. I kept missing the runway, like just like going over it, like, oh wait, I have visual aids. This is not a Cessna, but just like short final, but just like totally never being able to get down. That was my struggle with it. I don't know what your experience was.
Well, overall, I just felt like the airplane was a lot more mushy and like not as nice to handle, I guess. I mean, it was, I think, the best trainer type airplane that I was in, like that I have been in to, get to your license, learn the basic skills. It made me lose some of the skills I got doing tailwheel. So I probably would have switched the order and done 172 and then gone into tailwheel after that, just because I got all of these, good rudder, real skills that I lost a lot in the 172.
Yeah, I don't even know if I could fly. It's been years since I've flown in a J3. I don't even know if I could do tail wheels safely at this point. I think that's a more perishable skill. It feels that way anyway.
Yeah. Well, tonight, before this, I actually flew a tail wheel for the first time since my solo over a year ago. So it wasn't as terrible as I expected, but it was a Cessna 120. It was a lot different.
So you had a yoke. Does it have a yoke?
Right. Yep.
Okay, so you had a yoke, and then
I was in the front.
yeah, you're in the front. Yeah, you could see. Could you see?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've never flown in that. Okay, so you sent me. We've kind of skipped ahead through some of this experience. So I just want to go back. Sorry. No. I'm the person running the interview. It's my fault. So you sent me some kind of training photos, and the first one here is like all the book work. We've talked a lot about flying, but for people who are considering making this journey and becoming pilots, I'm just wondering if you could speak to this. You actually wrote an article about your experience with this. Mm-hmm. You just talk a little bit about, I enjoyed this part when I was becoming a pilot. The chats are going up. Noah Goldstein says, yes, it's so perishable, the tailwheel skills. Chris Palmer says, it's a yoke. It's not a yoke. It's a control wheel, said a troll to me one time.
That's funny.
That's really funny. So I really enjoyed the bookwork part, but it was a lot to like cram into my brain. I'm wondering if you could talk about your experience, because I think people always, like we just did, because it's the fun part where you talk about the flying part, but there is this base of knowledge that you need to accomplish. Could you tell me a little bit about, you wrote this article about how you aced this test. Like, what was that like?
It was at first very painful, but then I really enjoyed it, like you said. But my instructor, 2 months maybe into flying with him, told me I started with him in, I think early November. He told me I needed to take the written by the first week of January or right after the first of the year. And I laughed at him. I'm like, there's no way. He told me this early December. So I'm like, there's no way I can do this in a month. But I did. And first thing I did was buy everything, and way too many things. So I listened to everybody's advice instead of really trying to figure out what I really needed. So I spent too much money on books. So if anybody needs books, I probably have some. But then I figured out how I just needed to study through all of the questions. I used Sporty's Learn to Fly course. They're a close partner with EAA, so it was something I was just really familiar with, and it ended up really saving me. It helped a great deal. And then I just started going through the questions, and when I didn't it was important for me not to just memorize answers. I needed to understand them because, it meant I needed to educate myself in this process and not just, make sure I get the 70%, because I needed to get 100, and I didn't, but I got one question wrong, and that was it. So yeah, when I read a lot on what the question, I focused only on the correct answers, and then I would try to understand what that answer meant, research it. I luckily have a great aviation community around me, so I'd ask people questions, ask them to help me figure things out, and I just spent every night available studying and every weekend.
So, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it was the best thing I did was getting it done early in my training, because I could just focus on the flying after.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say, I think that people put it off a little bit, but in my experience, having it done early or trying to match it up with the lessons felt like it helped to me. I didn't get a lot of specific guidance on that from my instructor. It was more of show up knowing what you need to know for the lesson. Here's what we're going to do next week. There wasn't any super detailed stuff. In retrospect, it might have even been better to get it done even earlier. I clicked through a couple photos while you were chatting there. I think that the one that was interesting was Sarah Clucky says, I have the same airport sign and marking guide in front of me right now, clearly studying. That's awesome. And then you have a special guest has just shown up. Jamie Pittman is here.
Oh, no.
He says,
that's my flight instructor.
Yeah, he says her instructor is watching proudly, and then there's the little blushy face emoji.
Love you, Jamie.
So, another question that came in the chat, and I think this is a great one, and I was going to ask you this as well. What was the toughest part of training for you? Was it the book work, or was it the practical side?
It was Jamie. No, I'm just kidding. But that's sort of true. No. I think I was just my own worst enemy. I have a lot of doubts that come into my mind about most things I do. So I am an eternal pessimist. So that affected my training a lot until I really started. The unknowns, I felt like I didn't know what I was doing for so long that I wasn't going to get all of this. And I think until I started enjoying the process, it was mild torture sometimes. And once I started enjoying it and accepting that, okay, I wasn't going to solo in 10 hours like some people do. I stopped comparing myself.
Sure. And I would say that, and what I say to everyone I talk to, I mean, I think you might probably have more hours than I do it now, but one thing I say to everyone is when that comment you just made about I'm not going to solo in 10 hours or whatever, it's not a race. And there's no why would you want to do things we're having fun. Right.
Right. So, honestly, I'm glad. I mean, I'm sure Jamie could have soloed me in 10 hours if he really wanted to, but it was really important for me to learn how to handle the airplane in emergencies and all, because anything could happen when I'm by myself, and I needed to feel confident and comfortable in all of that first.
Yeah, yeah, and if you're not comfortable, you're not going to be safe, right?
Right.
So yeah, that's totally the right decision. A couple other things that we look through. There's an image now of your 2019 FAR AIM.
Yeah.
That's a rite of passage right there.
Yeah, that process actually just helped me understand that book or what's in that book, because obviously you're not going to memorize it, but it helped me understand the organization. And if at my Checkride, I was asked a question I didn't understand, at least I knew where to go to get the answer.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing that I have a friend who is considering starting pilot training right now, and it seems like that's part of the thing that's really daunting to him is like the book is this thick.
Yeah, it's insane.
and he's really concerned about having all that up here, and I think it's more about having the important stuff, right?
Yeah, and just knowing, I mean, we aren't expected to know every single thing by heart, but we need to know where to go to get the information quickly if we need it.
I think there's a thing I talk about a lot in film production, right? Is like, as a producer, I don't need to know everything about how everything on the set works. I just need to know enough to know who can solve a problem for me, or who could, like, when my I call it my producer spidey sense. Like my spidey, I've been doing it long enough now. Like my spidey sense will start tingling, and I'm like, something's wrong. I should figure out how to solve that, or figure out what it is. And I think that's what we're looking for. Well, I'm not an instructor, but I think that's what's asked of us, right? Like we should be able to understand that there's a problem, or maybe like the thing that always got me was like minimum equipment lists, things like that. Like just knowing that I should look it up was a huge step.
Yeah. I mean, you should know how to do an emergency if you are in one and not have to look up what you need to do. But
yeah,
a FAR AIM rule, that's a little different.
Oh, we're on fire. 1 second.
Yeah.
Right. A couple other comments came in. People love your FAR AIM. Adam Day, welcome, Adam. Good to see you. Adam Day says, your FAR AIM looks like my web browser.
Yeah.
Well played. Mine too. Marty, also an instructor, says, wait, there's two Martys. I don't know. Maybe that Marty is an instructor. Maybe he's not. There's two Martys in the chat now. This is terrifying. Marty says, look at all those tabs in the FAR AIM, and then like the heart love emoji.
Aww.
So that's even 782 Papa. More bookmarks. Yes, absolutely. Also, Nick Moore is here, and he's asking something about Pop-Tarts.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing. That's what I get all our photographers during AirVenture. Make sure everybody's equipped with Pop-Tarts.
There you go. Cool. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about learning to fly. So you're in the J3 Cub. Here's a photo of the J3. It looks like you're warming it up in the winter.
Yeah, yes, that is my reminder of how much weather can affect my flying. And that's probably like January, maybe February. And that's what we'd have to do, heat up the engine before we flew.
And if anyone's ever flown in the winter in a J3 Cub, put on some long underwear. Whoa.
I have not flown myself, the Cub, in anything but winter. And I have not landed on grass.
Whoa.
Which is just sad.
Whoa.
I mean, other airplanes I've landed on grass, but not that one. So I didn't get to enjoy any of the fun part of flying a Cub.
Okay, so here's what we're gonna do when this thing all opens up, because you're only like a 30-minute flight from me. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go. You and I are gonna go, and we're gonna go to Hartford. And I'm going to get recurrent, and you're going to get recurrent in the J3, and then we're going to take two of them up at once, and we're just going to do a ton of grass landings on 1836 there. Because that is like, there's something about a grass landing in a J3 that is like just so amazing. Something about like feeling it. I don't know. You're missing out. We got to get that checked off your list.
I did. I mean, I landed the 120 today on grass, but it's not the same. And the windows aren't open, so yeah.
Garbage.
I know.
No, that's so. I've always wanted to fly 120. I actually look at those a lot because they're. We talk a lot about the accessibility of flying, and like a 120 can be had for like less than a Harley and can take you a lot more places.
Yeah, I loved it.
That's super cool. Okay, so we're flying J3s. Let's see. Here. Let me turn. We got a picture of you. It looks like you and Jamie in the J3. There's no snow there though. Things are still kind of green.
That was probably November though, because that was one of my first couple weeks of flying.
You're wearing a hat, so that's probably fair.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't snow in Wisconsin until later, I think, that year. So.
So you sent me two kind of funny pictures here. Here's you in the back seat. Looks like you're having fun. But then the next one is you not not having so much fun. What was happening there?
That was probably Jamie yelling at me for something. I don't know. It was me not getting something, and I was just frustrated. And I forgot I had a GoPro 360 in there, and I totally forgot, and I found that screen capture. I'm like, I got to remember this. Actually, that might have been before Jamie. That might not have been him, because looking at the headset, I'm not sure. But anyway.
Ooh, deep cut. Yeah. That was not Jamie. There's no way.
That might have been Hartford.
Yeah. I think we've maybe worn the same headset, which is, I don't know if that's good or bad.
I hope you sanitized it.
I didn't, but now I hope they are.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you talk me a little bit through that a little bit more though? Because I think one of the things that people talk about a lot is there's a lot of folks that I'm trying to remember the right word I'm looking for. Like people end up weeding themselves out of flight training. I know I had a number of moments that were really difficult. Did you have any of that? There's that learning plateau that they talk about where you're just kind of stuck and it feels hopeless. Did that happen to you at all?
Oh yeah. And that's kind of when I thought like this wasn't going to happen. It was mainly around landings. I just couldn't get the flare figured out. I still really struggle with it. And I just thought it wasn't ever going to make sense. Everybody kept telling me one day it's just going to click. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not clicking. So I thought like I wasn't getting better at things, I felt like. So, yeah, that's something me and Jamie talked about a lot. But then honestly, like when I wanted to quit or I just thought I couldn't do it, I thought about all of the like people, I guess, that probably would have said, yeah, I didn't think she could do it. And I was not going to let that happen. It was really hard working in aviation before I knew how to fly an airplane. A lot of things just didn't make sense. I couldn't connect with people the same way. And I needed to do it for those reasons. And for myself, I needed to not give up on something for once.
I'm glad you didn't. It's awesome.
Me too.
Because it's totally awesome. But it is hard. And I think, this friend of mine who's looking to potentially start training, I think that's the other part that's on his mind right now is he's like, this is like a commitment. Like how long? I mean, it took me about a year, I think, from like first flight to private certificate. I think the winters in Wisconsin definitely don't help. I mean, did you have a similar time? I was just saying it wasn't a race, but just to have another data point, was it a fairly long journey for you as well, or?
Mine was about 8 or 9 months, and
nice.
That's
actually really fast for Wisconsin. Yeah. I feel like.
Yeah, because 2 of those months we didn't fly at all. Basically, everything was shut down. So I was shocked, but I really pushed myself and the process and making sure I flew multiple times a week. Like that was super important to me. So that's really what allowed me to get it done so quickly.
Well, and you also, I mean, working at the airport you're flying out of helps.
Yeah, right. I could drive 10 minutes away and I was there. So big deal.
Jamie didn't just taxi up to Pioneer Airport and pick you up?
I'm sure if he could have, he would have.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about a couple other. So the next photo here is big day. Jamie's cutting the shirt tails off for your solo.
Yep.
I think
Yep.
I would love to hear your first solo story if you'd be willing to share it. Just like what that was like for you.
Yeah, it was not magical. I mean, part of it was magical, but it was actually really rough on me because, so it was, I didn't know, obviously, like most people don't know, they were going into a solo. So Jamie jumped out of the airplane and said, "You're going." And I felt super ready. But when I got up in the air, like, it was so weird and different because I didn't have, that extra weight that you can see he has a lot of, but it was like suddenly I'm, up at pattern altitude and by myself, and I'm like, holy cow, I can't believe this is happening. And I'm nervous, and I'm actually on one of the smaller cross runways in Oshkosh, not 1836 or 927. And I'm like, for the first time, that was the first time I ever flew on those. So I'm like freaking out, and I land terribly. And it was almost like I was just all over the runway because I just, got tense and nervous, and I forgot about the rudders and like, keeping straight and everything. And so I like stop, and I'm like, oh my God. And Jamie has his own radio. He told me to come back to the hangar. And I'm like, all right, I'm done. So, but I got back up there, and he's like, what's going on? I told him like the landing was rough. I don't know what to do. And he's like, well, do you want to go back up? And I'm like, I have to, because if I don't, I'm going to quit. If like my last landing is like that after all my work, I'm like, I'm not going to get back in there. So it was getting almost sunset. So I went back out there. I asked for a different runway because one I just felt more comfortable with, a longer one, a wider one. So I went on 18 and, went around. It was good. I was just focused. I wasn't thinking about my mess up from before. Landed that one quite a bit better. Still not perfect, but I got a little slow, but it went a lot better. But unfortunately, that was the last one I could do because it was basically sunset. So I at least got one landing. And after that, I didn't feel awesome, but I'm like, I didn't crash it. I did this by myself, so we're good. And that was actually the last time I flew the Cub because it went down, like I said. So I'm sad I didn't get to like take control of it again, but I will eventually.
I think what's interesting is as you were telling that story, I think everyone on the feed was just reliving their first solos. It's a moment that you never forget. And actually in my life, there are very few moments that are like so perfectly like crystallized in my memory. And it's like, in order of like things I will never forget, it's like like my wedding, the birth of my children, and then like some bad stuff, and then like and like my first solo, right? Like it's such an incredible feeling. I remember turning base to final and being like, "Oh, swear word."
Yep.
It's me. Like I have to do this.
JB is not going to tell me when to flare or what to do.
Right? Like, remind Steve isn't here to like to help. And the other thing I think that people never thought about, and you feel it so much in a J3. We're basically just promoting J3 training right now. You feel it so much is the instructor getting out. Like the plane is just, I mean, it's probably true of a lot of light sport aircraft, but it feels like compared to like a 172 or a Cherokee or something, like having that thing to yourself is like you go from being like what you expect when you look at it to being like, whoa, this thing can actually perform if it's just me inside. I mean, for what it is, right? It's not, we're not Draco or anything.
I think honestly, my check ride was the most memorable part because that's where I felt like I just nailed all of the things that like I struggled with, that I'm super, super nervous, and I like did everything the way I was supposed to do it. And like, I just was super proud of myself on that one.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that next. So real quick, Ryan says, well, Connie says she misses the confidence she had when she went on her first solo. I think that's the flip. The flip experience is that the longer you fly, oftentimes in recreational flying, the less you fly. So you're actually like even more terrified if you haven't gotten up. That's my experience anyway right now.
That's how I am right now. Absolutely, yeah.
Chris Hornady is just pointing out to Jamie that that you called him fat.
Chris is who I went up in the 120 with today.
Oh, awesome.
That's his airplane.
It's super jealous you guys got to go flying today. Ryan Krieger says you can never forget it. The solo, absolutely. Looks like Noah. Oh, Nick Moore is here. Hey, Nick.
Hi, Nick.
And Noah Goldstein says that he's jumping on the J3 bandwagon. Yeah, absolutely. Dan says, my instructor would tell me that he wanted me to hear him in my ear when he was not in the plane.
Oh. Yep.
That's actually, I remember when Steve got out of the plane at Cub Air, he had me pull over because we were just on the grass runway. And then he says, hey, don't bend it. And I was like, no problem.
Like Beckham or like the prop?
I think he meant like bend it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about kind of the end of the journey here. So, that's a beautiful picture of looks like you're.
Oh yeah.
Like, is that the green dot again?
That's your green dot. Yep.
Yeah, there it is. I love that thing. So here's you. Looks like in a 172. Is that right?
I'm waiting. Is that me on my Checkride or what?
I don't know.
Am I flying?
You're flying.
I can't see it.
Oh, it should pop up for you in a second. So you're flying. You've got some.
Yeah.
And you've got
Yep. Sorry.
No, what is it?
I don't know. Yes, it's the 172.
You're flying at 172. You're all smiles.
Yeah.
And then let's see. Oh, here. So is this you? It's a photo of a Cessna 172. Flaps are dropped. It's the EAA STC demonstrator. 7 1 uniform or India uniform? One. I should know that. That's how N numbers work. And is this you on your Checkride?
No, that was just me doing pattern work one day. Somebody was taking pictures of airplanes and happened to catch me on final.
That's a really great picture to have of yourself flying. I have like no pictures of me like that flying.
I didn't do a good job of documenting my journey, so other than a few selfies and stuff. So yeah.
So here's a photo. Looks like Checkride Day. What you said that was a really great confidence building experience. You know, what did anything stand out? Anything totally different or new on that? Because there were some things in my Checkride that like I had never even knew I needed to do or practice.
Well, first of all, I was told this was 3 days before AirVenture last year, and I was told the week before that. Jamie texted me and he's like, don't hate me, but your Checkride is July 19th at 7 a.m. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm in the worst part of planning for our event. And I'm like, I can't believe you're doing this to me. And I'm like, and I can't tell anyone because if I fail, I don't want to have a bunch of people talking to me about my failure at AirVenture. So yeah, that was super stressed me out. I would say the thing that I just was the hardest for me was honestly the oral, because he asked me a lot of questions around maintenance and things that I knew where to look to find it, but I just were things that I wouldn't have known to study or anything, but it ended up being fine. But I think that was the hardest part. I
agree. My experience was the same, and I had this weird thing happen on mine where the examiner was saying he was running this thing about like, you know, we are going to go to Madison for a Badger game tonight. You're going to fly us, but you just went to the dentist and your tooth really hurts. Yeah. Should we go? And I said, if I just went to the dentist and my tooth really hurts, I'm not flying. Like, I don't need to go. I could drive.
Right.
I'll drive to the Badger game, or I just won't go. Why am I scheduling dental work before a Badger game?
And he's like, bad decision making.
Yeah, and so I was like, dude, like, I wouldn't go if my tooth really hurts. I don't want to be distracted. I'm a brand new like baby pilot. I wouldn't go. And I think what he was trying to get at was, could you go?
Oh.
Like, he wanted me to talk about I'm safe versus like taking aspirin, if that is like an approved medication. Like, he wanted me to go down that road of like, can I or can't I go? And I was just like, I'm not going. And eventually he's like, if you don't say, yes, we're going, I'm going to fail you right now. And I was like, I'm very confused, weird. But yes, we're going. And he was like, great, moving on. And it was really weird. I think we were there's some sort of, I took my test in the middle of a changeover in the thinking of some of the instructors in the chat can actually probably know this. There was some sort of switch over in terms of like how the orals were supposed to go, and I think I got caught up in there. But the oral is hard, super hard. We're gonna read some comments here. Adam Day says, "Great point. I was fortunate enough to record most of my flight training, which were fantastic for post-flight reviews. You hear things and see things you don't while flying." That's actually a lot of why I started a YouTube channel. And that's, I don't want to sound like a Flight Shops ripoff, but I think he and I have talked afterwards, and we both had found value in that. His channel is a little less dork in an airplane than mine, but we both, I think there's a lot of value with that, Adam. Absolutely. Sarah, do you still videotape your flights?
Not really. I wish I would have done more landings like that, because I think I could have understood like how my flare was happening and what I was missing better, but I just suffered through it instead.
Okay. Jamie, I'm sorry, like, look at comments here too. Jamie says her best piece of advice is actually to sing Salt and Pepper while flying.
Oh yeah, we did that in the pattern work, and I can't remember. It was like Push It or whatever that song is, and I can't remember why he was telling me to do that, but it absolutely brought a little educational value to the
Jamie,
work.
Let us know in the chat. I know we're about to wrap up for the night, but I can't believe this is such a fast, quick episode. We're having so much fun talking tonight. Jamie, let us know what the instructional meaning of that was. Was it like push the nose down?
I don't know. Maybe, but that doesn't entirely make sense. So I don't think he remembers either.
All right, Jamie, well, if you remember, Jamie, let us know. Other people mirroring the comment, like the song "Push It." Yeah, that's what we're talking about. People like blogging or recording training. Marty, CFI, another CFI in the chat, saying the same thing. It'd be really good to like journal if you're not videotaping or something. So that's a really good piece of advice. I want to move on to that. Well, actually, before we do, you sent me one last photo, and I think it's really important because this is like why we do it. This is a photo of you and another woman in the plane, and the title of it was First Passenger.
Yeah, that's my sister. So that was right shortly after AirVenture. She was up in early August, and it was just super cool because it's somebody who has nothing to do with aviation. I was using a crutch of pilots for a little bit, and I'm like, no, I need to do bring up somebody who can't save me if necessary. So that was just a fun experience to do with somebody in my family.
That's awesome. My first passenger was my wife. She's very brave. And I think that is another one of those moments that if you decide to do this, people listening or viewing at home, that's when it kind of feels real suddenly. You're being able to like take someone that you care about and safely convey them through the sky to to this other place. And I think for my wife and for my mom and dad and brother, people that I took shortly thereafter, they got it. right? Because I think on the outside, people who are supporting you, they support you because they love you, but they might not totally understand what you're going through.
Yeah.
So that was a really powerful thing. Connie, so Connie just teed up my kind of like closing question for you tonight, which is, she says, #lady pilots, sorry dudes. And so I have 2 daughters.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? That's awesome. I have 2 daughters, and one of the things I was going to ask you is, I mean, they're way too young to even start flight training right now, but one of the things I wanted to ask you was, do you have, I mean, you've given a lot of really good advice on this podcast, live stream, whatever it's called, about flight training, but particularly for women pilots, lady pilots, like what advice would you have for them? Because as a white guy, like it feels like not as many women are pilots as like bearded white men.
Well, that's true.
So what advice would you have for women who are considering going on an aviation adventure, journey, piloting, whatever?
I think sometimes it's hard for females to connect with each other and in the general sense in life. And I found it opposite in aviation. I think it's really important to connect with other women in aviation, other people who are or have gone through this similar things you have. It helped me understand what I was thinking and going through. I think sometimes we might, process and handle things a little bit differently. And I think my biggest advice for anyone really is, you're stronger than you realize you are, or that you might think you are, and to just not give up. And it's hard sometimes as a female in aviation. I mean, you're one of few, and sometimes you're just not maybe automatically respected as much. But luckily, most men out there are very, very supportive of us being a part of aviation. And I don't know, it just, connecting with the other women helped me a ton.
I think that, and I would love some of the women in the chat. I'd love to hear if you guys have other piece of advice before we wrap up for the night. I think that feels like a really solid piece of advice because, from my position on the outside looking in, I don't learn the same as everybody else. And I think separately, like there's a lot of kind of like stereotypical like pilot machismo, things like that even like are getting in the way of younger pilots, the new generation of pilots that we're hoping to inspire. There's some of that old guard. I was actually talking to Chris Palmer about this. I feel like we all protect this thing, and sometimes that gets in the way of sharing it because it's so special to us. And then I think there's also some like negative kind of classic like pilot jerk stereotypes that weave in. But like the only way we save this is by sharing it with everybody. So I just think that's an awesome piece of advice in terms of connecting with other women. The other thing I was going to ask you was, I mean, obviously you have access to the flying club and things like that because of the hard work you put in at EAA. It seems to me, and I've just done a little research on this, like there's a lot of financial aid for female pilots as well. I don't know if you had any experience with that, but that was something I had looked up and seemed like could be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't explore scholarships really at all, but there's a lot out there. I mean, EAA offers scholarships not just for women, for anyone. AOPA does, Women in Aviation, lots of organizations do. So I recommend anyone getting into flight training to use those resources as much as they can to help support themselves financially.
Very diplomatically said. No.
Good sales pitch.
Yeah, that was great. That was great. So awesome. So everyone, I've already occupied an hour of Sarah's time on a Wednesday night. I'm sure she's got better places to be and cooler things to do. But before we wrap
Well-
up, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. We'd love to answer any questions for Sarah, particularly. Would be great to ask them right now. Sarah, I gotta say, you and I. Oh, Dan says my wife would comment, but she is up doing pattern work right now.
Awesome.
And now I know which Dan that is, I think. Hey, Dan. Welcome to the feed. And 782 Papa says, it's cooler than heck to see women pilots. You go, girls. That's awesome. Connie says, my comment won't post. Well, Connie, that comment posted. Anyway, I just wanted to take a second, Sarah, oh, here we go. Connie's actual comment came up. Let me read it. I should actually, someday someone's going to troll me and post something like really vile before, and I'm just going to get in there. Connie says, I feel like women pilots are so much more supportive of each other and encouraging than guys with guys.
Agree. I mean, it's so much different than being a chick in high school when you're older women pilot. So it's true.
Connie adds, I've seen the stereotype being a flight attendant being a lady pilot. It only pushes me harder to make this dream a reality.
100%.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, I think I had to chop it. Oh, that she's saying I had to chop it up. That's why it was. All right. It was a technology issue. Okay. So everybody, thank you so much for coming in tonight and watching. If you like this feed that we did tonight, make sure to like, subscribe, share it, all that YouTube-y stuff. If you really love what we're doing with all these live streams right now, and I've got some other episodes coming out soon, you can hit me up on Patreon too, that you can support the channel, get some additional cool things like patches or whatever. But mostly just really excited, Sarah, that you could join me tonight. You have been a huge supporter of SuperAero in terms of just taking a chance on me like tonight and giving me access to some cool things at AirVenture at EAA, which just really made a huge impact on my life. So thank you for that. It was awesome.
Of course.
People should watch. There's a video where you and I crawled through EA's B-25.
That was fun.
And I didn't intend to do it, but I was wearing this shirt and I was super sweaty. Very embarrassing.
Yes, you were.
It's really bad. I think I left Hal. You guys should go watch the video, but the plane was in the Kermit Weeks hangar at EAA, and I got into Hal's car to drive back to the FBO, and I'm pretty sure I left a puddle. Like, it was pretty gross. Anyway, on that super embarrassing note, I'm going to take us home. Sarah, thank you so much again for being on the show. Stop by any time. I would love to have you again. And we won't see you at Osh 20, but I'm excited to hear what you guys are doing kind of virtually to get us our fix.
Cool. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thanks so much. We're going to wrap it up here. Everyone have a wonderful night.